Hey, good morning. Good morning to you. Are you well? Are you well? Are you well? It is Wednesday. It's the 11th of December, and well, it's the last day, isn't it? It's the day before the day. And tomorrow is the day. The country goes to the polls, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Schools, parish halls, but schools, primary schools, will be opened up to polling stations and polling booths. There you are. A mixed weather bag we have this morning in Salford and Greater Manchester. It's been bucketing it down, and it's fairly bright now and dry for the moment, but bucketing it down. It's apparently the last, it's the dying embers apparently of Storm Brendan. Storm Brendan. I've not been following the news. I have no idea why they call it Storm Brendan. Brendan is an Irish name. Maybe the storm originated on the Irish Sea, did it? I don't know. Or maybe if you listen closely, maybe that's why they call these storms by these names. Maybe if you listen closely to the wind, to the howling wind, you'll hear, in amongst all the wind and the rain, all that, you'll hear, "You junkies bastard. You junkies bastard." If you listen really carefully. That's why it might be Storm Brendan. Anyway, that's a bit nonsensical. Lots going on outside the general election. More polls this morning suggest that the gap between the Conservative Party and the Labour Party is not as insurmountable as it was feared a few days ago or a week ago. I don't know. I really don't. I think the main polling companies in this country have admitted in recent years that the polls have been skewed, they've been inaccurate, and they've said that that they've worked pretty hard on the methodology around the polling. I just don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm not a gambling man. I don't have a gamble. If I was forced to put a tenner on any outcome tomorrow, I would probably lean towards or go with a very narrow majority for the Conservative Party, a very narrow one, if I was forced to have a punt on it. But I wouldn't be surprised if after the votes are counted overnight, Thursday night into Friday morning, I wouldn't be surprised if the outcome was one where the Conservative Party had the biggest vote share, won the most seats, but don't have enough to form a majority. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But I'm not great at predicting these things, so I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, today's the last day of campaigning. The nation goes to the polls tomorrow, and you should have a fair idea of how things are going when the exit poll is announced on Thursday night, tomorrow night, at around about 10:30 p.m. Although, in recent years, the exit poll hasn't been accurate. Although they do point to the last general election, the 2017 general election, where the exit poll was fairly accurate. It predicted that the Conservative Party would be the largest party, but wouldn't be able to form a majority government. We'll see how it goes. You won't be surprised that, this being the eve of the election, the UK's newspapers today are largely consumed with issues around the election. Here's the Times newspaper. As I've just been telling you, Tory lead narrows ahead of final election rallies. There's a picture there of Boris Johnson. You know by now, because I've been telling you every day, the Times, the Telegraph, the Daily Mail, the Daily Express and the Sun are the Conservative Party supporting newspapers. Police launch rape inquiry into mystery Mr. X tycoon. That's an interesting one as well. A couple of papers have gone with that. One of Britain's wealthiest men has been accused of rape and sexual assault and other crimes, but he can't be named. There's a gagging order on the press naming him. I know who it is. They are accusing, not because I'm worried that I'll be held in contempt, but I'm not going to say who it is. I think you probably know yourself. Don't think you need me to tell you who the man is who has been accused. That's the Times newspaper. Here's the iPaper then. Corbyn closes on Johnson as race tightens. Pretty massive lead at one time, wasn't it? YouGov, Comres, Ipso, the Sky News polls, the various commissioned polls by the newspapers. At one stage saying landslide. Now they're saying it's pretty close. 5 points, 4 points, 6 points maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. That's the iPaper. The Mail. Britain's future down to the wire. Johnson saying to the Mail, don't sleepwalk into catastrophe. You must use your vote and stop us plunging into the greatest crisis since the war. That's actually not a Boris Johnson quote. That's the Mail's editorial. It's not Boris Johnson speaking there, even though he often writes in the Mail, as he does in the Telegraph, whom he used to work for. That's the Daily Mail there then. The Guardian. Final scramble for votes in most important election in a generation. There's Aung San Suu Kyi pictured there as well. She's in The Hague, isn't she? And has been since yesterday. Today she's addressing The Hague, addressing the charges of genocide in Myanmar. Once the darling of the mythomaniacal rock and roll set, wasn't she? Didn't Bono love Aung San Suu Kyi at one time? Didn't he campaign for her to be released from her house arrest? And yeah, she was a cause célèbre, wasn't she? Not too many people want to be associated with Aung San Suu Kyi these days. What's been going on in Myanmar? Burma? I haven't a clue. I haven't a Scooby-Doo. Because the only information I could get about that situation, of course, comes from The Guardian or The Independent or The Telegraph. So I have no idea. Rohingya Muslims, I haven't a clue. Genocides are 10 a penny in 2019. They're happening all over the world. There's a genocide going on in Gaza. There's a genocide in Yemen. There's a genocide in the UK. People being killed, being starved to death by austerity. They're not being shot in the head or buried in unmarked graves, but they're being killed slowly but surely. So genocides are 10 a penny. I don't have to look too far to see them. Here's the Telegraph newspaper. PM pledges to get tough on serious criminals. And there's a picture of him at the JCB factory yesterday when he got to fulfill a lifetime ambition of mine. The scruffy bastard. Driving a JCB. All my life, all my young life, I fantasised about driving a JCB. And he drove a JCB through a wall, a temporary wall constructed, all to show him bursting through the Brexit impasse, presumably. Boris Johnson. He's all over Twitter this morning, Boris. I'll tell you why in a minute. Here's the Mirror. Johnson saw my son's death not as a tragedy but as an opportunity. And that's the father of Jack Merritt. Jack was stabbed to death on London Bridge a couple of weeks ago. And his father gave an interview to Sky News, Beth Rigby. And also I think has been speaking to one or two of the tabloids and says that the exploitation of his son's death by Boris Johnson and Michael Gove and others has been pretty shameful. Johnson said it's proof, didn't he, that early release for violent criminals is a bad thing, it's a dangerous thing. Anyway, that's on the front page of the Daily Mirror. New Tory low, says the Mirror. We never bother with the Financial Times, ready. He's ready to shake up overseas aid if he wins votes. Very, very much remnant of Donald Trump, isn't it? Some of the stuff being said by Boris Johnson in the last few days. Since Trump has come and gone. That's a very Trump-esque thing to talk about. Of course, Johnson is never going to tell the British people the truth about overseas aid really goes, where it really goes, what it is spent on. He's never going to come clean about that, of course. Here's the Metro newspaper. I look like a right plonker. This is because Guido Fawkes, the Conservative supporting website, yesterday published an audio file of a conversation between Jonathan Ashworth, who's a Labour MP and also the Shadow Health Secretary, Well, he has a couple of pals in the Tory party, and he spoke to one of them very candidly about his opinions about Jeremy Corbyn. His so-called friend recorded the conversation and leaked it to Guido Fawkes, and it did certainly make Jonathan Ashworth look like a fucking plonker, to say the least. And there's a picture of The Rock. If you smell The Rock. I like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. Whenever he's interviewed on television programmes, whether it's Graham Norton or Jonathan Ross, comes across as a fairly humble dude who doesn't take himself very seriously. I like people like that. You know, The Rock doesn't see himself as an actor. I like that. He knows he's a gouger who's getting away with it. Demolition job on Corbyn by his own man. Daily Express, same story. Jonathan Ashworth. Be careful. You might be being recorded. Number of people involved with the BBC phoned me in the last 5 or 6 months to discuss certain things with me. I wonder, did it occur to them that they might be being recorded? More on that another day, maybe. Yeah. Here's the Sun. Boris ticks all the boxes. He'll sort Brexit. No, he won't. NHS billions. Pack of lies. Low taxes. Keep us safe. Corbyn out. Does he tick all the boxes? Don't trust Marxist Labour is the Sun's editorial today. There won't be any big front page headlines about the election tomorrow because they're bound by the rules not to do that tomorrow. It's weird, as I said, in Ireland now, the moratorium would be today. In Ireland, you wouldn't be allowed cover the election today. In the UK, it's on polling day itself that they've got to restrain themselves from editorialising around the election. Anyway, that's the Sun. You see a picture of Greta there to my left. To my right, to your left actually. She's been addressing the COP25 in Madrid this morning, telling supernatural horror stories as Greta, you know, evocative of Edgar Allan Poe and Dante, about where we're all going to go if we don't do what she tells us. It's a weird thing. Sky News showing several minutes of it live this morning. A mentally disturbed teenager addressing a conference in Madrid, and it's given blanket coverage by the media. Yeah, mentally disturbed. I stand by that. Here's the Daily Star. I mean, this is just... We miss hugs and kisses with Madeleine. It's been 13 fucking years since that child disappeared. By the way, the first person that says Richard D. Hall, cue Richard D. Hall on the live chat. I'm going to find you and fucking kill you. Richard D. Hall hasn't a clue where Madeleine McCann ended up. Like every other truther in the truther industrial complex, he makes a lot of money out of sensational claims that he can't back up with hard evidence. I have no idea what happened to her. I have grave, profound problems with the official narrative around the story, and I've got serious problems with the conduct of her parents. But if we leave all that to one side, it's been 13 fucking years ago. Wow. How many children do you think have gone missing in that time? We know thousands disappear in care every year. You know. Relentless, isn't it? The Madeleine McCann story. The story that will not go away. Jerry and Kate McCann. Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell. That's all been brought into it, hasn't it? The McCann story recently by various truthers. Yeah. I don't know. I never rule anything out. I just don't take anything seriously unless I'm presented with incontrovertible evidence. Or hard evidence. Speculation. We can all speculate all day long about things. We need to have hard evidence. Like I said, I have never found the parents to be very credible. Personally. That doesn't mean anything. Okay. Good morning, by the way. Thanks for chatting away amongst yourselves there. Richard's films are free to view. Yeah. Richard did very well out of YouTube back in the days when YouTube was, when people could upload to YouTube and place ads around their content with little interference from YouTube. Richard did very well out of it back then. A lot of people did, making very sensational claims about things. Clickbait, effectively. Richard is a clickbait merchant, Richard D. Hall. It's all he's ever been, in my opinion. But you can lose your collective shit all you want. I don't care. I don't care about you, you see. When it comes to things like that, I have, my opinions are no more valid than yours. But more importantly, they're not any less valid. So you'll suck it up, Buttercup, and you'll like it or you'll fucking lump it. Make a lot of claims, a lot of claims in the truth or industrial complex. Wild claims. And a lot of people made a lot of money back in the days when you could upload these videos to Google's YouTube. And good luck to them. I don't blame them. It's a road I could have gone down myself very easily. Talked about this last night with the Trigger Warning boys. Very easily. I'll never forget a conversation I had with the great David Icke. And he said, Rich, I've been in national TV in the media. I've written for newspapers. I said, you have, Icke? He said, you've had a very successful career in commercial radio, in radio broadcasting and teaching. I said, I have, Icke. He said, we could make a fucking fortune, couldn't we, Rich? If we went down the Infowars route. Just started lying. Just started peddling lies. Sensationalising everything. And, taking the conservative or alternative right route. And I said, of course we could. What's your fucking point? I said to him jokingly. And he said, the point is a lot of people are doing it. Yes, a lot of people are doing it. Oh, by the way, he wasn't suggesting that we do it. Of course he wasn't. He was saying, we could do it better than the spoofers. And he was right. But then, I don't know how you go to bed at night and sleep. Right? If you're peddling lies and conspiracies that to have no basis in reality. All for a quick buck. And that's the essence of the truth or industrial complex. And I've talked about that a lot. And it pisses you off sometimes when I do. And that's fine. We can live with one another. You've never heard me tell you what to watch or what not to watch. It's none of my business. You've never heard me tell you shouldn't watch that because it's shit. No, watch everything. Watch as much as you can. Get it all. And then you make your own mind up. You're never going to be influenced by me. At least I hope you'll never be influenced by me. I just think Richard D. Hall's a fuckwit with a capital F. And that's my opinion. Okay. I'm only bringing him up because Madeleine McCann's in the news. And I knew you'd start, Richard D. Hall. Fuck off. Anybody who calls himself Richard D. Hall, who inserts a D or a P as a middle initial, is a massive wanker anyway, right? Richard G. Allen here. This is Richard G. Allen with the news. Fuck off. My middle name is Gerald, by the way. It's called after my grandfather, Richard Gerald Allen. RGA. Yeah. Okay. What else have I got for you? What else have I got for you? Puberty blockers has come up a few times on the programme. I've interviewed people, of course, on the radio show. They're very concerned about the long-term medical effects, the long-term impact on youngsters having puberty blockers. And the Telegraph features the story of a young 12-year-old trans girl whose mother says was expressing herself when she was 3. Was adamant when the child was 3 that she was a girl. Gender dysphoria, is it? The Telegraph running a story today about puberty blockers. It's a fairly decent article. It's Ashley now, born Ashton, born as a boy, but believes that he was born in the wrong body and now identifies as Ashley the girl. Obviously very, you couldn't looking at a picture of young Ashley there, you couldn't say, could you? You couldn't tell really. But the puberty blockers thing is a big thing, isn't it? Can Ashley not just dress and live as a girl and be left alone to do that, by the way, without the puberty blockers? Particularly because grave concerns being expressed by the medical fraternity, really, about the impact of puberty blockers on people later on. Maybe go through puberty. Dress as you wish, but don't have those puberty blockers. Maybe that might be the wise thing. This is obviously a big thing in the last week or two, because the Liberal Democrats and their leader Jo Swinson has been hammered for being very flippant in her attitude to this thing, basically saying if kids want to have puberty blockers, fair enough. If kids want to transition, fair enough. Let's remove the current people identify at the moment. You've got to go and see a doctor. You've got to work with a doctor. There are guidelines about identifying, as a trans man or a trans woman, and basically the Liberal Democrats want to remove those and basically make self-identification the norm. You self-identify. I identify tomorrow as Karen or Tracy, and I change my appearance. They want to bring in. They want to make it very easy for me to do that. So it's in the Telegraph today. What else have we got? It's weird today. Like I said, it's pretty much blanket coverage of the election today. But there is a very interesting story in the Metro. Now, the Metro is, of course, that free newspaper that you get thrust at you as you're entering train stations, getting off trams, getting on buses. The Metro. There are sometimes very interesting articles in the Metro. And here's a very interesting one. Now, those of you who will vote tomorrow, you might find this very interesting. I think it is very interesting. Investigation finds 88% of Tory ads misleading compared to 0% for Labour. That's in the Metro today. And it's very interesting. This is independent analysis now of claims made by the two main parties in this election cycle. I want to bring this up, if I can, on this blooming tablet here. Now, this is an organisation called First Draft, and it's a non-profit organisation, okay? It's completely independent, and it is found, it works on debunking fake news, and it's analysed every ad promoted by the three main political parties on the social media platform Facebook, okay? And it has found that 88% of the Conservatives' Facebook campaigning advertisements pushed figures that were challenged by Full Fact. Now, Full Fact is the country's biggest and most recognised fact-checking organisations. It's used by the media all the time. You'll often be listening to radio, watching TV, and you'll hear somebody from Full Fact taking on a campaign promise or something contained within a manifesto. So they found that 88% of the Conservatives' Facebook campaigning was pushing figures that have been challenged and questioned by Full Fact. But by comparison, First Draft said it couldn't find any misleading claims by the Labour Party in that period. Zero. That the lies and the spin and, taking liberties with the facts and the numbers and the figures was all coming from the Conservative Party and not from the Labour Party. They said that out of 6,749 paid for ads by the Tories on Facebook over 4 days, over 5,000 of them contained the claim that the party will build 40 new hospitals, either in the caption on the image or in the link. But that's been branded as misleading by Full Fact because it hasn't been costed and cannot be delivered within the forthcoming parliamentary session, which would be 5 years. So Full Fact have said that's a nonsense, among other things. And that's an interesting one today. 88% of the Tories' advertisements on Facebook have been challenged, claimed to be misleading, none for Labour. And what's really interesting about that is the BBC is covering this story, well, seemingly covering it, but it's not really covering it. The BBC has been accused of Conservative Party bias in the last 2 to 3 weeks. You know, I'm not going to go into it. You know why, the various things that happened. And here's the BBC running that story, but not mentioning in the story. Not mentioning in it. You can go onto the BBC website if you don't believe me, and I know you believe me. I've read the story this morning. The BBC omits from its reporting of this story that the Labour Party hasn't been challenged on any of its claims by Full Fact or by the organisation mentioned. Isn't that very, very interesting? The lies, the untruths, the misleading figures, all coming from the Conservative Party in this cycle. Yeah, we're coming up for 4 minutes to 10 on Wednesday, the 11th of December. And speaking of, we'll stay with the election momentarily. I tried to get the audio of this, and I tried to get the video clip of this morning, but I couldn't get it because I think Google might have been preventing people uploading it. Tell you what I mean by that. First of all, I'll tell you what I mean, full stop. Boris Johnson was campaigning in Pudsey this morning and he was delivering milk to people. And while doing that, he was challenged by a Good Morning Britain reporter who was broadcasting live for Good Morning Britain and feeding back to the studio where Piers Morgan and Susanna Reid were presenting that programme. They presented most days. It's all also presented by Ben Shepherd and Kate Garraway and others. But the main presenters are Morgan and Reid. So they were presenting and they threw live to their reporter in Pudsey. And he ran after Boris Johnson because Good Morning Britain has been trying to secure an interview with Boris Johnson for a number of weeks now. And Piers Morgan has been challenging Johnson on social media to come and speak with him. So the reporter tried to accost Johnson while Johnson was delivering milk to people, and what ensued was utterly bizarre. But it happened a few hours ago, and video clips of it, uploaded by people on Twitter who'd recorded it using their phones and pointing their phones at the TV, those clips are out there, but nothing. Just before I came on with you at 9:30, nothing on YouTube. And I wonder, is YouTube trying to prevent people from uploading it? I wonder. While I'm chatting with you there now, I'm going to go onto YouTube just to see is the clip there now. It might be there now, but I couldn't grab it. Because one of Boris Johnson's campaign managers or aides, basically, yeah, it's not there. Boris Johnson milk. Boris Johnson fridge. Is it there? Can you believe it? It is not on YouTube yet. Wow. So I put Boris Johnson fridge in there. Sorry for doing this. Now I'm muttering away to myself there while I'm looking for this. 2 minutes ago, it's just gone live 2 minutes ago on the Telegraph's YouTube channel. Boris Johnson hides in fridge to avoid Good Morning Britain reporter. Boris Johnson retreats into fridge to avoid TV interview. Yeah, one of the guys managing Johnson swore at the Good Morning Britain reporter live on TV and said something like, "Oh, for fuck's sake," or something like that. The newspapers have gone with it. The Daily Mail, which is supporting Johnson, to its credit, the Mail went with it. I can bring it up for you here. I was doing so well too. Boris Johnson's press secretary tells GMB reporter, "For fuck's sake," as he tries to intercept PM's milk round. leaving Piers Morgan and Susanna Reid shocked before the Tory leader hides in a fridge to avoid the interview. He ran into a fridge. Did he? Do we have a picture of him running into the fridge? There he is. There's the retreat. Look at him, hunched over. And I'm guessing the reason why Johnson is not too keen to speak to GMB, it's not because he fears that, that doyen of live interviewing Piers Morgan. Morgan is wretched. I think it's more to do with the fact that GMB did an interview with Jennifer Arcuri, the American businesswoman, with whom Boris Johnson had a relationship of sorts with, whether professional or otherwise, I don't know. But possibly because the story of the 4-year-old boy on the being forced to lie down on coats in the corridor in the hospital in Leeds. But Johnson didn't want to have any part of it anyway. And it's not a very good look when you run away. So give the Mail a bit of credit. They've run it on dailymail.co.uk. They've run it, and it is the top trending story, meaning it's at the top of the page. Right, so the party is supporting Johnson, but fair play to it. It's put it out there as it happened. Johnson ran away. There you are. Good stuff. Give credit where credit is due, you know. Yeah. What else have I got for you? Not a lot, I'm telling you. Not a lot. We're coming up for 2 minutes past 10. Yeah. Hayden Hewitt is very amused by my middle name, Gerald. When you make your confirmation in Ireland, you take another name. It's very Spanish, that. We lived in Spain, as you know, for years. A lot of Spanish kids, they have like 4, 5, 6 barreled names. We take an extra name when we make our confirmation. I can't remember whether I took the name Peter. I can't remember. I genuinely can't remember. Is it Richard Gerald Peter Allen? No, it isn't. It's Richard Gerald Anthony Allen. That's right. Richard Gerald Anthony Allen. That's me. Esquire. When I made my confirmation, when I was confirmed as a Christian soldier back in the day, when I believed all that bollocks. But did I believe it? I was only 12 at the time. I probably didn't. What else have I got for you? What else have we got for you? Just a couple of election. Again, it's all election. The Times, interesting article in the Times today about a couple of big names who might be under pressure this election. Because remember, doesn't matter if you are the Defence Secretary, it doesn't matter if you are the Education Secretary. You've got, like everybody else, despite your career, despite you having a big job and being very prominent, in terms of your front bench presence and all of that, you've still got to go back and win your seat in your local constituency just like everybody else. And the Times has run an interesting piece today which suggests that Theresa Villiers, former Northern Ireland Secretary, and even Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary. I think Raab is the incumbent Foreign Secretary. Is he? Is he? Let me just have a look. Yeah, he is, yeah. Yeah, I know you get so tired at some stages, you get so knackered, you start to doubt your own sanity. Yeah, Raab, of course, is the Foreign Secretary. So the Mail the Times going with an interesting story about some of those heavyweight politicians who might struggle to retain their seat. There it is. The Mail. Yeah. Also in the Times today, why the clock face is running on borrowed time. This is an interesting story. It alleges that half of Generation Z is not able to tell the time by looking at a traditional clock. That can't be right, can it? Everything is digital now. Smartwatches, obviously, digital clocks. You're more likely these days to look at your phone if you need the time, aren't you, than to look at a watch. So phones, tablets, laptops, smartwatches, and because they are everywhere, It's being alleged by the Times that kids can't read clocks anymore, or half of them can't anyway. I wonder how many people under 25 could read a map. I've got one in my glove compartment, an AA road map of Britain. How many kids could stop their car in a safe place and take out a map from the glove compartment and use the map and look at it and say, right, here we are now. Right, so we've got past this junction here. You see the junction on the map? We've got to pass that junction. Then we've got to come off the motorway here. And there's a roundabout. I wonder how many kids could do that. I can still do that. I'm very proud of it. I can still look at a map and make my way around. I don't need the sat-nav. There's also an argument to be made. You don't really need the AA maps anyway. You just need to read the road signs. But there you are. Lot in the Times today. Another Bush. We've got another Bush in Texas. The Bush family dynasty. The guy's name is Philip Bush, I think. Is going to be running for Congress in Texas. That's in the Times. If you want to read that, you might not want to read it. I don't think you will. And big story being covered by the BBC and Sky News this morning, which is interesting. Here's Sky. This is Sky's take on it. Sky says a Jewish supermarket was targeted in New Jersey in a gun battle that left 6 people dead. Right? A kosher supermarket is thought to have been deliberately targeted in a shootout that left 6 people dead. Among those killed was a police detective who was investigating a murder in Jersey City when he approached 2 suspects, one of whom opened fire and shot him in the head. The mayor of Jersey City, Stephen Fullop, tweeted, based on our initial investigation, we now believe the active shooters targeted the location they attacked. I smell fake news here. And I'll tell you why. It had nothing to do with the Jewish supermarket at all. I've been following this on American television and even on British television. The BBC are running the story too. And you can read the articles on bbc.co.uk. The police in Jersey City are saying that it was not a terror attack. It was more to do with a statewide illegal weapons operation. That's why there was a shootout on the streets of Jersey City. The police were trying to take down a couple of guys who were involved in a statewide illegal weapon distribution operation. It had nothing to do with targeting Jersey's Jewish community or the kosher supermarket. It just happened to be the shop they barricaded themselves in. But Sky is going with the Jews are under attack angle when it's a pile of bollocks. Monumental bollocks. But even more interesting than the fake news about the Jews being attacked in Jersey, which is terrible fake news, even more interesting than that is this. What the fuck is that? That's the police. You remember when Jim Mars was alive and used to come on the Richie Allen show every 6 or 8 weeks? The great Jim Mars talking about posse comitatus. You know, the law that's supposed to protect people in the United States from being under fucking military occupation. The law that says that the military can never interfere in domestic policing. Do you see how they got around that law? The hyper-militarisation of the police. Look at that. Does that look like the police to you on the streets of Jersey? Does that look like the police to you? We see it here now, don't we? Every time there's an allegation of terrorism, every time something happens, every time somebody is stabbed, we see the police come out looking like this. We see Christmas markets being policed like this. In Manchester today, I expect to see, because I will be in Manchester this afternoon, I expect to see police in the Christmas market dressed like this. You see them at airports now. This is how they get around the awful spectre the unimaginable reality of putting the military on the streets, because most British people would balk at the idea of the army walking around to keep us safe, right? Quite rightly, most British people would be, well, that's horrendous, that. This is not a fucking police state. It's not a military state. We don't want to see that on our streets. So this is how they get around it. They arm the police to the teeth with high-grade military weaponry. And they do it by the back door. That's in Jersey City. They look like the police to you? Huh? Christ, huh? Now listen up. Listen up. There's no radio show today. Caroline's off this week from work, and I'm going to go into Manchester City Centre later this afternoon to spend a bit of time with my missus. We're going to have a walk around the Christmas market, and then we're going to go for a pizza. And that's just the way it's going to be. There's no radio show today. Now, there'll be 2 live shows tomorrow. I'll be back with the papers tomorrow morning, and I have a full live radio show for you tomorrow afternoon. Gerald Celente is among the guests. That's Thursday tomorrow. And on Friday, I'll be live with you for at least 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours on Friday afternoon, lunchtime to the early afternoon, when we'll be talking about the result of the UK general election. So today, I will not be with you. There'll be no radio show today. Don't be crying to me about it. I'm taking a little bit of time off. I'm just taking the afternoon off. And I'm going to be in Manchester City Centre with my other half, who's off work this week, and I want to spend a bit of time with her. So tomorrow morning, 9:30, paper review, 5 o'clock the radio show tomorrow with Gerald Celente, and then on Friday I will be analysing the election result. I will have guests, and I probably will open the phone and Skype as well for you to have your say. That's on Friday. Okay? Okay. Good stuff. Right. So enjoy the rest of your Wednesday then. Thanks for tuning into this. Do remember, for very funny content, very pithy content, not pissy, pithy analysis, sometimes outrageous, sometimes funny, sometimes right on the money. Do check out Trigger Warning on YouTube with Hayden Hewitt even and Graham Booth. I'll be back with you, as I said, tomorrow at 9:30. Until then, have a brilliant Wednesday. Thanks for watching this nonsense. See you later on. It's bye for me. Bye now.